In Colombia, we have a violent culture. This stem which I make space of my interests as a researcher. This performance is part of my experiential and theoretical work. In that sentence, he realizes two things: culture, and the other hand, violence. For years, I have had a deep curiosity to find the reason that gives rise to the development of a history of violence in our country. How has it developed, and from what elements did this history become a fundamental feature of our culture and being Colombian? These concerns and others lead me to investigate political science, trying to find the answer not to psychological trauma but to social problem that has such deep roots in our nation building. One of the authors who has inspired me on this path on and has led me to delve into these problems has been Stanislaus Zuleta, particularly in a presentation that he makes for his honoris causa doctorate at the University del Valle, which will later become a text of a page, The Price of Difficulty. Another author who has influenced my theoretical construction has been Michael Tosic, Australian anthropologist who has in Colombia and based on these researches wrote a wonderful book, Shamanism, Colonialism, and the Woman. From these readings and others, together with my experience in Magdalena Medio, working in zones of armed conflict, I have elaborated some reflections on culture and violence in Colombia. I will expose some of these below considering the little time I have. The first aspect that I want to elaborate on is how a culture other than the indigenous one appears on American soil or that will later be recognized as America. This is the Spanish European culture that has some important nuances to consider. The Spanish belong to an organization political social known as the monarchical state in which the central axis is power. This is live in a man, the king. He is the power. The maximum expression of this power is over the life and death of the men and women who are in his hands. He decides who can live or who can die. Another element is the institutionality that is constituted in this state, the church and the armed forces, and three element is theocentrism, which circulates and dominates Europa and energizes the monarchical state. Following this logic, these aspects are the ones that reach America: power institutionalism and theocentrism. America is inhabited by indigenous communities whose religious element is animism, which consists of the fact that natural phenomena are considered sacred such as rain, sun, and air, which are forces that move and do something for indigenous. The communities are organized by tribes that have an interacting axis, which is the cacique. It is he who contains the tribes and gives it meaning. Everyone in the tribes belongs to by consanguinity. We have a meeting of two ways of existing and being. One has the truth and considers that it must impose it and submit to those who are different from it. The natives call the conquerors gods and the Spaniard call the natives animals. Goods, gods, animals are two ways of naming that display culture's context. Therefore, the institutionality that appeared in America was accompanied by its symbols: the church, the cross, and the armed force, the sword, in which vertical power relations are expressed, something commands and the others obey. This is the model of power that is going to be imposed in America, and I will call in the command obedience matrix. What are the expressions of power in the matrix? Hierarchy, submission, imposition, authoritarianism, blind obedience, orders, discipline, punishment, hygiene, order, obligation, and true belongs to whoever has power. Justice is administered from the top down. These aspects are going to be imposed on the daily life of the indigenous communities through the constant, systematic, and repetitive exercise of violence. Relationships that I establish from the above is the following: power, politics, and violence became constitutive of Colombian culture. Violence will be the most relevant factor in the social life of Colombians. Culture and violence continue to be topics of reflection in both political science and sociology, culture studies, and post-colonialism, because the cyclical nature of violence in Colombia continues to cause concern in these disciplines. We became a nation after 115 to 200 years of discovery, conquest, and colonialism. We went from a century of civil wars to bipartisan violence, and from this to the war between paramilitaries, guerrillas, and armed forces. For these reasons, culture and violence continue to be a disturbing universe of reflections. This pairing must be urgently attended to in schools, with the little ones, to teach how this dynamic of power occurs and how it develops in relationships, to create, to counterculture. For my part, I will continue investigating, because culture is not something static, rather is changing, and violence is acquiring other nuances, which is why today we are talking about violence. One of the cultural hands in which culture is deleted is the family, and that is why the work that must be done too dynamically to violence that occurs, it is urgent. Parents among themselves, parents with their children, and children among themselves and with their parents. Violence has been the way of Valiant to solve the conflicts that authoritarianism generates, imposition and punishment bordering of the line of violence. A pleasure to be able to share these reflections until the next opportunity.